In this class, we will study about some of the coding conventions or style guidelines for programming. So some of the coding conventions include how do we declare a variable, or how do we write a variable actually. How means we don't when we declare a variable, we don't have to write a number actually. We have to specify a letter over here. So these are some of the coding conventions. So let's see. So first we'll make another file over here, and here suppose I'll write coding conventions like this. So our first coding convention will be how do we write a variable. So variable always starts with a letter. So like this. Here suppose I will take a variable name. Okay, this is the variable. Okay, so it always starts with a letter over here. Okay, so this should be always a letter. The starting letter should be always a letter. So here in this way we can mention a variable over here. Suppose here two different words are there. Car name like this. So these are actually two different words. So here we follow a camel case. Okay, like this. So the first word will be in small letters, and the second word, the first letter of the second word will be in uppercase. Okay, so this is called camel case. Okay, so when we use two different words to specify a certain variable, so always declare that first word in small letters, then the first letter of the second word will be in capital letters. Okay, so this is the like coding convention actually. So this is a good practice to write like this. Second one is like we should always mention spaces around operators. Okay, suppose here I'm taking any value over here, variable num equals to x plus y. So here you can see it is a good practice to always mention a space, okay, after or before operators. Okay, so it look nice over here. Okay, so this is a good practice to always maintain a space between the operators. And here you can also see we are mentioning a space around the between the operators. Okay, so always mention a space. Okay, always give a space around the operators. So this is the second convention. Now our third convention will be code indentation. Means suppose when we write a function over here like this. Okay, so here you can see this code starts from here over here. Okay, so it is always a good practice to maintain a distance, actually two spaces from the start. Okay, where we are starting the function over here. Okay, so always indent two spaces after the starting point over here. Here you can see 1 and 2. So it is a good practice to always mention a two space gap from the start. Okay, when we use a function like this. Okay, so this is the third convention over here. The fourth convention is always give semicolon at the end of a line. Okay, when we use a JavaScript. Okay, when we code, always use a semicolon at the end of a statement. Okay, so like this. So it is not compulsory, but it is a good practice to always provide a semicolon at the end of the statement. Now our fifth convention is here when we write a function over here, so always put the opening bracket at the end of the first line. Means like we can also mention like this. Okay, so it is always a good practice to mention the opening bracket where we in the same line where we are writing the function. Okay, means this particular function keyword over here. So it is always a good practice to write mention the curly brace opening curly braces in the same line. Okay, And the sixth thing is we should always maintain a gap over here, okay, like this. So when we are writing a function, so always maintain a gap, a one space over here between the curly braces and the function, okay. So these two are the functions conventions. Like the third convention in the inside the function is we should always put the curly braces in the last line. Okay, suppose here we are writing some code over here. Okay, so here we are writing some code. Don't mention the ending curly braces like this over here. Okay, always put the ending curly braces in the next line. Okay, means in the last line. So in order to understand that here the opening is there, here the opening curly brace is there, and at the last the closing curly brace is there. So in order to understand properly, we should mention this curly starting curly braces in the same line and the last curly braces in the last line. And when we write some long statements, so our next convention is the line length should be less than 80 characters. Okay, means here suppose we are writing document dot get element by id. So when it is long, okay, actually, so when it is more than 80 characters approx, okay, so all when it crosses this line over here, so don't like insert the second line into this over here. Okay, suppose I will suppose give write something over here. Here HTML equals to, I will write suppose, I'll copy the same thing over here. I'm just showing you, okay, like this. Okay, so here you can see a scroll bar appeared here. So don't overwrite, means overwrite this. Okay, actually don't extend this line over here. Okay, so in order to look good, always give it on the next line over here like this, so it can be more readable when someone is seeing your code. Okay, so don't make this scroll bar appear. Okay, so here you can see if we'll remove this, so here you can see now this line is more readable actually, so we don't have to scroll it. Okay, we don't have to scroll it in order to read something. Okay, so keep your characters length in a line always less than 80. Okay, convention is suppose when we save something, actually here when we save something, okay, so this extension should always be like here when we use HTML. Okay, so always use the HTML extension over here. Okay, so here we are writing HTML over here, so it will pass for HTML code. Okay, when we are writing JS over here, so it will pass for JS code. When we write CSS index.css, so it will take the CSS format. So like this, always put the correct extension if you want to provide the HTML in that file. So put that index.html. Okay, so the extension should be .html, not .htm. Okay, .html. And when we want to use CSS or JS, so use .css for CSS and .js for JS files. So these are some of the coding conventions that we actually use. Okay, so these are some of the coding conventions. Okay, so when you will write the, when you get in practice, okay, you will be able to get all these, okay, coding conventions actually. Okay, you will get a habit of writing the code in a cleaner way. Okay, now we will see which code we should use, which code we should don't use, means which keyword we should use and which keyword we should don't use. Okay, so we should avoid. Okay, we should use but not frequently. Okay, so here I'll tell you which variables, which keywords should we should avoid. Okay, so here the first is new. Okay, so this is the keyword for making an object on an array. Okay, so here we have seen in the previous lectures, when we are initializing an array or an object, so we are writing like this: variable arr equals to new array, like this. Okay, so this is the way of creating an array, means this is the second way. Okay, we can directly make an array like this. Okay, we can also make an array like this. So why should we write like this? Okay, so always like avoid the new keyword over here. Okay, and the second is avoid the double equals to sign. Okay, so avoid the double equals to sign. And the third is avoid global variables. Okay, so here when we are talking about variables, so in the previous classes when we were talking about the global variables, so what is a global variable? Actually, global variable is when we write a function over here, suppose. So this is the global variable actually. Okay, so inside this we can also assign a variable like this. So this is a local variable over here, and this is the global variable, means it can be accessed globally from this file over here. But this x over here, it can be accessed only from inside this function over here. Okay, so always avoid global variables over here. Okay, and always declare local variables like this inside this function. Okay, so it is a good practice to actually avoid global variables and use the local variables. And when we use a local variable actually, so always declare at the top actually. Here when we are taking something, so always put like here variable x comma name comma like price, like this. Okay, so always initialize the global variable at the top position of the code. Okay, so it will look clean actually. Okay, when you write all the variables in a single line, so you can see where we are initializing the variables. Okay, so here like this we can mention our initialize our variables at the top of the code. Now suppose we want to put the value of this. Okay, like this, variable x equals to 2, like this. So here we don't have to use again variable over here. Variable name equals to, suppose, any name Ashish. Okay, like this, you don't have to use again variable. So you will just remove this, and like this you can mention the variables over here. Okay, so variable x equals to 2, name equals to Ashish, price equals to something. Okay, price equals to 4, like this. So you can mention the local variables like this. Okay, so you don't have to use where keyword unnecessarily in different places. Okay, so you are using the where in one place only, and you are initializing the you are initializing more than one variable here. So like this you can initialize a variable with the values. So here when we were talking about avoid double equals to, so we should always use like triple equals to, means we should always convert, means always compare the type. Okay, so this last equals to means we are comparing the type of that particular variable or a statement. Okay, so always use uh, three equals to sign. Okay, so you can use double equals to where there is necessary. Okay, but always use three equals to sign. So our last case is when we were using switch actually. So here suppose like where we are using switch. So I'll write a switch case here. Okay, so switch here and the case over here. So we are mentioning the particular case over here. Then we are mentioning like this. Then we are writing case, and here our case. Suppose I will write anything. Suppose number num. Okay, so I'll write case one here over here, and here I will write suppose some code over here, okay, like this, and we are providing a break over here. So this is the syntax of switch statement, okay. So when we when we end this case over here, so always put suppose I will copy it. Suppose more cases are there. Actually, I will indent it correctly. Okay, like this. So these are the two cases over here. So always put a default statement over here. Okay, like this. So when here I will write some code over here. So like this. So when this cases when it will not able to reach these two cases, it will switch to this default case over here, and you can give that particular necessary statement over here, okay. So if this num, okay, it if this cases are not included, okay, if then it will switch to this default case over here, okay. So always mention a default case in the switch statement. So these are the some of the keywords that should and the naming conventions that we should use. So these are some of the coding conventions. Okay. So next what we'll cover is we'll cover our JavaScript forms. Okay, we'll see some how do we make a form and how do we validate it. Means how do we put a condition on a form. Okay, suppose when we like inside an input box we want to provide a certain syntax. Means we want to actually provide we want the user to enter only the number inside that input box, so we have to validate that input box, okay. We have to mention a condition over there, okay. So we will learn that, okay, in the like suppose we'll make a new file over here, index 18.js, okay. So here I'll write our forms and form validation, okay. First, we'll learn how do we create a form. Okay, so it is simple. So what we'll do is we'll go to our index.html file, and here what I will do is here you can see we have created a form with the help of our form keyword. Okay, so in this way we can create a form. Okay, so here inside our form two input boxes are there. Okay, you can see these these are the input boxes. First is this input box, and this is the submit button, okay. So here we are giving the input type equals to submit. So when it is inside this form tag, okay, so this submit type will consider it as a submit button over here, okay. So here we can also mention a label over here, okay, label like this. Suppose I will give uh, name over here, okay, like this. So this will also come inside the form, okay. So here you can see we are providing a label means actually the descriptive name of this input field, okay. So here we are mentioning the label, then an input box over here, and here you can see we are validating the form over here, okay. So it is here we are writing include the numbers between 1 to 6 only, and then we are providing a submit button over here, okay. So in this way we can write a form, okay. This is the basic syntax of writing a form. So now we'll do like will validate our form actually. Okay. So what we'll do is when we click onto the submit button, okay, we should suppose here when we provide this, click this button over here. Okay. So it is not doing anything. Okay. So it should do something when we click this button over here. Okay. So we should apply event over here inside this submit button actually. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll actually what we'll do is we will perform an event, okay, like on submit event suppose. Okay, so how we'll do that, we'll suppose first here I will inside this form over here I will include a on submit event over here. Okay, so here you can see we are getting our on submit event inside this form. Okay, so we are submitting that particular form. So we'll use this on submit event over here, and here I will return some function. Okay, suppose validate form. Okay, like this. So we are returning a function over here. So we have to mention this function somewhere. Okay, so we have to call this function. Okay, so we'll call this function from here our index dot 18 index 18. Okay, so we'll write function validate form like this. Okay, so inside this we have to write our our code, so what we want to perform. Okay, so what we want is when this particular field is empty. So when we click onto this button, when this field is empty, we should get an alert box over here. Okay, so we'll perform here, write some code over here. So we first have to target this value inside the input box value. Okay, so how we'll target this input box value? So first we have to target the form. Okay, so for targeting the form, we have to mention something. Okay, so here we can target it by using the name. Okay, so we have to give a name over here of that form, my form like this. So now we can target this form by taking this name property over here. Okay, so like this. So here what we will do is we will perform our code over here. Suppose variable I will take, suppose variable forms equals to document dot forms and the name of that form over here. Okay, that is my form actually. So the name is my form. Okay, so we are targeting that particular form. Okay, so now we are targeting this form over here. So now we have to target the input box over here there. Okay, so input box. So here what we'll do is we have to mention something in order to identify this input box over here. So here I will give input name equals to name. Name means this is the property, this is the property, this is the value. Okay, suppose I can give f name over here like this. Okay, so these two can be same. Okay, for understanding I'm giving here f name actually. Okay, so for targeting this input we are taking the name. Okay, so the name is f name here. Okay, so here what we'll do is we'll use again a dot over here, and sorry, we'll not use a dot, we'll just use f name over here, that input box, and then the value inside that particular input box. Okay, like this. So what we are doing is first we are targeting the form over here with the help of document.forms and then the name of that form. Then we are targeting that particular input box and then we are extracting the value. Okay. And then we are storing the value of that particular input box inside this forms. Okay. So I will like input value will be the correct name actually. Okay. So always put a descriptive name when you are declaring a variable over here. Okay. So I will put a condition over here if like input value is an empty string. Okay. So when this input value means the value inside this input box over here, if it is empty, then do something. Okay. Do do something. Okay. Otherwise, return false. Okay. So when the input box is empty, do something. Otherwise, if something is there, return false. Okay. So here we'll write some code over here. Simply we'll provide a alert box over here and we'll give a message over here. Empty input box like this. Okay. So what we are doing is we are providing a function. Okay. From here you can see we are providing a function, returning a function when we are submitting that particular form over there. Okay. So we are returning that particular function and inside that particular function what we are doing is we are first targeting the value of the input box and storing it inside this input value variable, and then we are giving a condition if the that particular input value is empty, give like output an alert box if it is empty, the otherwise if it is something is written over there, return false. Okay. So like this. So what we'll do is like here we'll first change our path. Okay. Here I'll change it to index18.js like this and we'll save both the files over here and let's see what is the result. Okay. So here we'll keep this input box empty and suppose I will change it to change the button name to submit over here. Okay, so this is the submit. Okay, so this is the submit button. So I'll click it. So here you can see we are getting this F name over here. So here we are not getting our alert box if even if this is empty. Okay, so here what we have done is, so first we'll remove this validation over here. So it should be text over here or anything. Okay, text or a number. So we haven't validated our form now. So what we'll do is we'll simply check what is the error over here. So we'll simply first check we aren't getting our alert box over here. So here all the things are actually correct. So let's move on to our JS file. So what we have done is we haven't we have actually first we have initially taken our value and then stored it in input value, then we have compare. Okay, so what we have done is we haven't compared, actually we have to use double equals to sign in order to compare both the values. Okay, so this is the assignment operator. Okay, so here we'll use our double equals to in order to compare the values. Okay, so these two values, now it will give us the correct result. Okay, now we'll go to our browser and check whether it is performing things correctly or not. So here we have mentioned our double equals to sign. So now when the input box is empty, we'll click on this submit button. So now it is working correctly. So now this is giving us an alert box if the input box is empty. Okay. Suppose I will write over here something and click on submit. So now you can see here our f name is coming as a equals to a. This f name is the name of this input box. Okay. So actually we are not doing something, we are not applying a method into this form. Okay. Later when we deep dive, like later in a second, when we deep dive into this form, okay, inside this form we'll use our method. Okay. So two methods are there. Okay. Get and post. Okay. I will tell you in a sec. Okay. So here we are uh, outputting this f name as a. Okay, because we are writing, suppose I will give Ashish over here and click on this submit button. So here we are getting f name as Ashish over here. Okay. So this f name is coming when we are giving this input name as f name. Okay. So always when you are using input inside a form, always it is always necessary to give a name of that particular input box. So this name is going to the server and fetching information from there. Okay. So we haven't included any server side language yet, but just for showing you, I'm just like showing you this name usage of this name over here. Okay. So here you can see we are getting the name as Ashish over here. Now I will tell you about the form methods. Okay. So there are two form methods. One is get and the second is post. Okay. So the default is get over here. So we aren't using any method inside this form. Okay. So it is taking the get method over here. So in get method, this particular input box. Okay. So when we are writing something inside this f name over here, suppose I will refresh this page, hit continue. Suppose I will remove this. Okay, like this. Now when we write something over here, suppose the same name, okay, and hit submit, you can see we are getting this extra URL over here. Okay. So first a question mark, then the input name, that is f name, equals to Ashish. Okay. So this is used when we use the get method. Okay. Suppose I will use get method over here. So this is the default get. Okay, like this. So this is the get method over here. Now when we refresh and remove this, now we'll write something. Okay, like this. So now it is coming f name equals to UK. So this get method, when we use get method, the particular input fields, what we write inside the input fields, that comes into this URL over here. It is added to that particular URL. Okay. But when we use the post method like this, okay. So now we'll just remove this first and we'll refresh this. Just a minute. Like this, and we'll refresh this. Now when we write something, okay, like this, and here we are using the post method over here. Now when we hit click, when we submit it, now you can see no values are coming, no values are adding into this URL because we are using our post method. Okay, so in post method, the input boxes values are added to the, sorry, in get method the input box values are added to the URL, but in post method the input box values are not added to the URL. So you can say the post method is more secure than get, because suppose we want to write up our password here. Okay, so when we use get method, So our password will be shown inside this URL. What we don't want. Okay, so we'll use our post method when we suppose use a form like username password actually. Okay, so we used post method there, so the password should not be shown to other users. Okay, but like the basic things when we are using name, like the sign up form. Okay, so we can use that things inside the get method. Okay, so for security purpose, we use the post method, and for like the normal input boxes, we use the get method. So these are the main differences between get and post method. Now we'll talk about some of the keywords that is used in the validation of a form. Okay. So here, like first we'll use our, here we are using the inside pattern like this. Okay, so this is the keyword actually. Suppose here we'll use 126. Okay, so this is the keyword for the form validation. So here what we are doing is we are mentioning 126, means only enter 126, only accept the values between 1 to 6 inside that input box. Okay, so let's see. We'll refresh it, we'll hit continue, and now when we suppose continue, so here you can see we are only accepting the in this between this 1 to 6 numbers. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll input 1 over here and now hit submit. So you can see this does not give any error. Okay, suppose when we hit 7 over here, when we enter 7 and hit submit, so here you can see it is giving us an error. Okay, so it only accepts the values between 1 to 6, no alphabets, no numbers greater than 6. Okay, so this is the first validation, first keyword for the validation. Okay, so many more are there. So next is suppose I remove this, or the second is the disabled. Okay, what we want is, suppose we want to disable that particular input box, so simply use this disabled attribute over here. Okay, so what we will see here is, suppose refresh it, hit continue. Now you can see you will not able to do anything, so this input box is now disabled, so you can't enter the values inside this input box. Okay, so here we are using just the disabled attribute inside this input box. Okay. So in your projects, when will you will do, so you have to mention suppose a condition over here. Suppose when we are doing this, enable the input box, and when we are doing this, disable the input box. So you can add this prop attribute inside the input box by giving that particular condition. Okay, so just in give this disabled keyword inside this input box and it will disable the whole input box. The next thing is required. Okay, required is means when we use this required keyword inside this input box, so now it is compulsory inside the form to fill. Okay, means when we are creating a form, suppose here what I do is create some more input fields here. I'll give L name, change it to age. Okay, like this. So here I will remove the this in this input box, I will remove the required field over here. Okay, so let's see. We'll just refresh it. We'll hit continue. So we have three input boxes: first name, last name, and age. Okay. So these two are, we are giving the required attribute inside these two input fields. Okay. So let's see. We'll suppose input something over here, input something over here, input something over here, and hit submit. So all fields are correctly submitted. Okay. Now here we'll not enter anything. here I will provide something, here I will provide something. Now when we click on and submit, so here you can see we are getting an error. Please fill out this field, because here we have given required, means it is the it is we have to fill this input box. Okay, so it is compulsory to fill that particular input box where we have mentioned the required attribute. Okay, suppose I will mention something over here, and suppose I will neglect this second input box and will hit submit. Now you can see we are getting the error, please fill out this field, because in the second input box we are also giving the required attribute. So we'll fill this, okay, and we'll not fill this. Okay, now we'll hit submit. Now you can see our form is correctly submitted. Okay, it is not giving us an error when we are neglecting this third input box. Okay, because here we aren't giving any required attribute. Okay, so when we give the required attribute, it is compulsory to fill that input box. Okay, so this is the use of this required keyword. Okay, so here now the fourth is this, here this type. Okay, this type attribute over here. So here we can also use type text, number, or like here you can also use email, like this. Okay, so when you want the input values to be text, provide text as type. When we want number, so you can provide type as number. When you want to input the email, so provide the type as email. Okay, suppose here when we hit submit, when we hit submit, suppose what we'll do is we'll change it to email over here. Okay, like this. So it is not compulsory to change the name now for when we do projects. So always give, when you are giving email over here, so always give that particular name. Okay, so it should be similar in order to understand. Okay, so in the first input box we are giving the type as email. Okay, suppose I will give h over here, I will also give h over here, and I will leave it. Okay, suppose I will hit submit. So here you can see it is giving please fill out this field. Suppose I will put h over here and hit on submit. So here you can see we are taking this email format over here. Okay, suppose I will just a minute, like, like this. Okay, so it will take the type as email. Okay, here we are taking it as number when we are providing the type as number. Here when we provide as text, so it will select the, means it will only accept the text. Okay, so these are the validation attributes. More are there. Okay, like max, min. Okay, so many more input attributes are there. So the next attribute is value attribute. Okay, so here we can mention a default value inside the input box. Okay, so here we haven't mentioned anything, so this input box is empty. Okay, so we can manually enter the value of that particular input box by using the value attribute. Suppose I will give value equals to, and I will suppose abc at gmail.com, like this. So we are giving a value to this input box. Let's see what is the result. So I will hit continue. So now you can see here we are providing a default value to this input box, that is abc at gmail.com. So by using the value attribute, we can mention the value of that particular input field. Okay, so now the next attribute is read only. So what it does is when we provide the read only attribute inside the input box, so here you can see we can edit this particular input box. Okay, we can also edit this input box over here, we can also edit this input box over here. Okay, So when we use this read only attribute, suppose here I will use read only. Okay, now what is the difference? We're not able to edit that particular input box. Okay, so it will only be readable. Okay, we can't edit that particular input box. So here we are using this read only attribute in our first input box. Now we'll refresh it, continue, and now when we click onto this input box, so here you can see now we can't edit this particular input box. Okay, so this is only in readable mode. Okay, so we can't write anything inside this input box. We can write something inside this input box, but we can't write anything inside this input box. Currently it is in read only mode. Okay, so this is the use of read only attribute. The next attribute is placeholder attribute. Okay, so when we mention the placeholder, uh, placeholder means actually a descriptive name for that particular input name, which will be shown inside this input box. Okay, so we aren't showing anything. So what we want to include here is, so we have to enter a descriptive name inside this input field. Okay, so here what we'll do is inside this last input box we'll use our placeholder, and suppose I will write enter age like this. So it will be shown inside that particular input box. So let's see here, we'll refresh it first. So now you can see enter age is showing, but it will not be when we type something. Here you can see it will be removed. It is just a descriptive name for that input box. Okay, so the user can know what they have to enter inside that particular input box. Okay, so it is just a descriptive name. So the next is our step attribute. Step attribute actually include when we use this type as number. Suppose here I will use type as number. Then it is all this step attribute is always used with numbers. Okay. Suppose step equals to I'll give like 2. Okay. I will give it as 2 over here. Okay. So here we are using the type as number means it will only include numbers, and the step is 2 means when we provide something it will uh, step in the like 2 4 6. Okay, it will not add +1, it will add +2. Okay, so here let's see, refresh this page. Now we are getting our this, when we use this particular number type we'll get this arrow sign over here. Okay, upward and downward arrow. Suppose when we hit downward arrow we'll get 0 2 4 6. So it is getting in the format of +2. Okay, 2 4 6 8 12 16. Suppose when we like I will step it as 5. Okay, now you will see it will add +5 10 15 20. Okay, so it will add or subtract +5 into this particular input field. Okay, so this is the step attribute over here. Okay, so we can also use the min max multiple. Okay, suppose I will use min or max over here. Okay, suppose what I will do is max equals to 5 over here, suppose. So I'll save it and refresh it. Now when we enter 1 2 3 4 5, so it will not extend after 5. Okay, because we are giving the maximum value as 5 over here. Okay, so it will not extend the value after 5. In this case we can also mention the min value. Suppose it should not go below uh, 2 actually. Okay, so here we'll refresh it. So when we put a downward arrow, sorry, here it will not, the minimum value is 2, so it will not go below 2. Okay, so it will not go below 2 because the minimum value is 2 over here. Okay, so this is the min and max attribute over here. Now the last attribute we'll know is about, last not, but two more are there, that is autofocus actually. So when we use autofocus, so we are using it inside our second input. So when we use autofocus, okay, like this. So when we load the page first time, okay, so the focus will be on to this second input. The focus will be on shifted to this second input. Okay, so we'll just refresh. Okay, so here you can see by default the focus changes to the second input box. Okay, suppose here I will remove this autofocus from here and I will place it here over here. Okay, like this. So now when we refresh, you can see the input box focus is at the second, but when we refresh, now we have our focus at the third input box because we are mentioning that particular autofocus attribute inside the third input box. Okay, so by default, where we want to keep our, where we want to keep the focus of that input box. Okay, so this is the attribute we can use. Okay, the next is the multiple attribute. Okay, actually this multiple attribute is used when we use the file input box. Suppose here I'll take another input type equals to file over here, and here you can use like this. Okay, so let's save it and see what is the result. Okay, so here you can see this is the file format over here. So here we can use, where here we can choose the file. Suppose I will choose some pictures over here. Suppose like this, we can use the pictures. Okay, so we have selected one picture over here. Suppose we want to select the second picture over here. I will choose the second picture. So it is removing the first picture that we have selected. Okay, so it is overwriting that particular picture. Okay, suppose you want to choose more than one picture, so here you can use the multiple attribute over here. Okay, like this. So now it will allow to choose multiple files. Okay, from your system. Okay, so now we'll choose this. So here, just a minute, here I will save this particular file and I will refresh this. So I'll choose this particular pick here, and then I'll choose another, this one. So we have to choose like this. Okay, so here what we'll do is we'll put the, we'll select with control. Okay, so here we can choose multiple pics over here. Okay, we can choose multiple pictures over here, and then we can upload that particular files over here. So we are choosing 4 files over here, but when we will not, but when we don't use this multiple attribute over here, just a minute. So when we refresh this page, and when we choose file, and when we choose multiple files over here with the control, okay, so it will only select one file over here. You can see we are only able to choose one file. Okay, so here we can't choose more than one file. So when we use multiple keyword over here, we can choose multiple files from our local system. Okay, so this is the use of multiple keyword. See here, now we can choose multiple files. Okay, so we are choosing 3 files. Now we can upload it. So here it is written 3 files. So we are uploading 3 files now. Okay, so these are some of the keywords that we use in our form validation. Okay, Now we'll move on to our next topic in our next lecture.